Hello everyone. I hope you all are doing well. This is going to be a quick, well, maybe not quick, but a quiz review for the brain structures and functions. So I will mark a structure on the brain here on visible body, and part A. So it would say I mark, this part. I would say, 1A is the structure, and 1B would be the function. All right, so make sure you write down both structure and function for each structure. And for some of them, it might be, I'll indicate if there isn't, a specific structure for, or a specific function for one of these structures. I might ask you to name like the purpose of a certain structure. So it may not have a physiological function, but it might have a structural purpose. So I'll make sure to indicate that as well, and we'll go through it as we go. So let's get started. All right. So we're looking at the lateral side of the brain. So let's start with. Right. So these are going to be two that don't actually have functions, but this is going to be the general name of this structure. I'm not asking you to identify the specific one. So it's going to be number 1. All right, so just the name of that structure. And number 2 is going to be the general name again for that surface around. Right, so these are located all over the brain, all over the outside. So they're individually named into sections, things like that. We're just looking for the general name of structures for 1 and 2, just structural name. All right. I'm going. All right, now we're going to move into lobes. So just this. All right, so I'll say A and B, that means structure and a function. Now we'll go here. So sorry, I'm cutting over into 1 and 2, but hopefully you get the gist. So structure and function. Again, structure and function. And lastly, structure and function. All right, so if you need to, you can go ahead and pause the video and we will go over the answers to some of these. So again, I will abbreviate. I will write out, I'll abbreviate what the structure is. I'm just going to say the function out loud since I don't have a lot of room here, and that would make for quite a long video if I wrote it out as well. So, pay attention. And if you need more time, always feel free to pause the video as we go. All right, so let's go through these real quick. So number 1. So number 1 was that blue line in here. That's going to be a sulcus. These out, they're short. All right, so sulcus, that's going to be that depression in the brain surface. So number 2 is going to be the elevation. That's going to be the gyrus, or gyri for multiple. All right, moving on. 3A and B. So 3, we are looking at the frontal lobe of the brain. So we'll go over these structures later, but down here, those are going to be structures that are going to be on the posterior side. So that's how you can kind of orient yourself as to whether you're looking or what end is posterior and anterior. And the frontal lobe is always going to be anterior. And the function of the frontal lobe is to process intellectual and motor functions and information. So 4 up here, this is going to be the parietal lobe. And the parietal lobe processes sensory information. So that's where the sensory cortex lives. And just to add on for frontal lobe is where the motor cortex lives as well, just to put that in there. All right, 5, that's going to be the temporal lobe. And that's going to be for processing auditory information. So it's on the side, kind of near your ears. It's a good way to remember. That's where the auditory cortex lives. And number 6 is going to be the occipital lobe. That's where visual information is processed. All right, hopefully those looked pretty good. I'm going to clear this drawing and we're going to move on. All right, so we have 2 quick landmarks here. So we're looking at the superior portion of the brain. This is anterior, posterior. So these are going to be specific divisions that you need to know for the brain. So start here, like this. I did number 6 last time. I'm just gonna have to do number 1 again every time we go. Hopefully it's not too much of a problem. All right, so that's A1 and the red 2. All right, so go ahead and name those structures. And pause if you need to, and we will go over them. So number 1 is going to be dividing the brain. So like cutting through that plane there. So number 1 is going to be dividing the front and back. It'll be the central sulcus. And number 2 is going to be the longitudinal fissure. Dividing left and right. All right. All right. Let's move on to some more features. All right, now we're going to cut through, dissect out some parts of the brain so we can get to the structures, some of the structures that we need to know. So there are several structures within the brain that you can see on visible body that we are not reviewing. So I'm cutting them away so that it is easier to see the things we do need to know. So just keep that in mind. That should be okay. All right, so moving on, let's go through some more structures. Let's start with this structure in here. It's a little bigger. Go back to number 1 again. All right, so A and B means structure and function for that area. All right, number 2. we'll do 2A and B. Structure and function. Very simple function for 2. Just keep that in mind. Right. Moving on, got number 3 here. Structure and function. For A and B, structure and function, you know the drill, hopefully. Five A, B. Six A and B. Seven A and B. 8A and B. Remember, always pause if you need more time. No worries there. All right, this one is a little tricky to see. Hopefully it won't be too bad. You might be able to see it at another view. But hopefully you can kind of see that blue structure in there. All right, so give you a hint. It's very closely related to number 2. And it would have the same function. And we'll go with one more that's also very similar, hiding back here a little bit. Over here. 10A and B, also the same function. 2A, 2, 10, and 9 all have the same function, same general function, but they are different structures. All right, so pause if you need to, and we will start going over these. All right, so number 1. All right, that is going to be the Corpus Callosum. And the function of the corpus callosum is to allow for communication between both sides of the brain. Number 2 is going to be the lateral ventricle. And that's going to help carry CSF, which is cerebral spinal fluid. Number 3 is going to be the thalamus. And the function of the thalamus is going to be a gateway for all sensory information. It helps relay that information to appropriate areas of the brain between the brainstem and the cerebrum. Right, let's see. Number 4, that's going to be the midbrain. Oops. It's a little tricky to see, but what's in there? So the function of the midbrain is going to be, it has a role in determining one's state of consciousness and plays a role in hearing, vision, motor control, and thermoregulation. All right, number 5. That's going to be the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus helps regulate growth, metabolism, reproduction, and stress responses. So it's primarily operating through the pituitary gland. It's also responsible for actions of smell, taste, and vision. And it plays a role in homeostasis, different homeostatic mechanisms, especially with sleep and thermoregulation. All right, number 6. It's going to be the pituitary gland. Right, so the pituitary gland is also tends to be known as the master gland. Its function is to secrete hormones produced by the hypothalamus, as well as secrete hormones that stimulate the endocrine cells elsewhere in the body to release their own hormones. So that's why it's considered the master gland, because it's releasing hormones that control the release of other hormones within different glands around the body. Number 7 is going to be the pons. Right, so the pons, the function is to carry signals between the spinal cord and brain, and it also contains a respiratory center that maintains rhythm of breathing. Right, number 8. It's going to be the medulla. So, the medulla functions as it's a part of vital homeostatic mechanisms. It controls involuntary function of the heart, respiratory and digestive systems. So it has a big role in blood pressure regulation as well. Okay, number 9, so is that little one over there? That's going to be the 4th ventricle. Right, so the 4th ventricle is also going to be carrying that CSF. I went a little out of order on those ones, but number 10 is going to be the 3rd ventricle. Right, so all of those are going to be carrying cerebrospinal fluid. All right, so a big chunk of our structures here. So if you need to, go back and review, look at your lab assignments, some handouts. This is not also just to put it out there, the functions that we're going over, you know, there's several functions for a lot of these places. I'm keeping it, you know, pretty simple here, but make sure you're reviewing in your book or with the handouts or any notes that you've taken from lectures in lab. All right, so please use resources besides just this video. You gotta look elsewhere as well. All right, so we're gonna move on to another view and go through some more structures. All right, one that I actually didn't mention on this view, you know, a lot going on the last one, is, all right, so we only have a side view right now, but hopefully you'll be able to name it. Still, you definitely should be able to. Something a little brighter. It doesn't help either. There we go. It's a little better. All right, so looking for the name of that whole structure. So we can also see it. I'll just flip to another view here too. All right, also still cut in half, but hopefully that gives you a little bit better of a view. All right, so we'll call that, we'll go with 11. I do remember ending at 10. All right, so that is going to have a structure and function. And these next few, I'm just going to keep it to structure names, or we'll do one on this view. So these little branches within that structure. All right, so all in there, not just the ones I drew. 12. All right, so pause if you need to, think about it, and we will go over it. Right, so 11 is going to be the cerebellum. Cerebellum. And number 12 is going to be the arbor vitae. All right, so the cerebellum is going to function to help with adjusting postural muscles of the body, and programs and fine-tunes all motor muscle movements. Right, so those are those two there. And we will move on to the next view. Clear that well. Right, so let's go through some of the structures here now as well. So there's going to be one more landmark structure on the cerebellum. A little bit tricky because we don't have the full view, but it's going to be the spot in between the two hemispheres of the cerebellum. So this would be where I just drew that X, that's one hemisphere. The other one would have been there, but I cut it out for the purposes of going through some of these landmarks. All right, so I guess I should number it. I'm on 13 now. Just structure. All right, and let's just keep on going. So this one's a little tricky to see. Try doing the bright color. So hopefully you can see that blue there. It's a little circle ball-like structure there. That's why you got to be able to go into, why you should go into visible body on your own time, looking at some of these structures on your own so you can really get a good view at them. But I'm glad you're here reviewing as well. All right, so these up here do get a little small, but we're gonna work through it. So now below that we have two other bumps over here. So both of those are gonna be 15. A and B, structure and function. So it just has, hopefully you've caught on, if it just has a number, just function or just structure, and if it has A and B, it's structure and function. All right. And do more below that. Put both of those together. Right, and they are sitting on a structure that we went over earlier, but I would like you to identify it again. Right, so we saw it in the first view, but go ahead and name it again. We'll just say name for now. Hopefully you already got the function down. All right, yeah, that should be everything on this view. Cool. All right. All right, so go ahead and pause if you need to, and we will go through these. All right. So number 13, that is going to be the vermis. So just dividing the two cerebellar hemispheres. Right. And number 14, structure and function. This is going to be the pineal gland. All right, and the pineal gland is, it contributes to the function of the limbic system. So that's going to be like our emotions, behavior, memory, smell. Yeah. 15 is going to be the superior colliculi. So those are going to control reflex movement in the eyes, head, and neck in response to visual stimuli. And just below them, number 16 is going to be the inferior colliculus, and that's going to control reflex movement of the head, neck, and trunk in response to auditory stimuli. And 17, that was one that we had seen in the previous view. That's going to be the midbrain. Right, so notice how the colliculi sit right on that midbrain, protrude out of the midbrain. Okay, awesome. Hopefully those weren't too bad. All right, there's just one more structure that I would like you to identify. I just need to cut away at some of the things. I just wanted you to be able to see kind of where I'm going. I'm cutting. So, cutting away all of that. A couple of different ways you can see it. Let's see. So this is one we went over, the one that's in the brighter blue. That's going to be the third ventricle, so we went over that. But now, sorry, it's still a little bright. See this tube right in there that I just circled in red? Oops. What is that structure? Give you a little hint. Pause now if you don't want to hear it. But it's going to lead from the third ventricle down to the fourth ventricle. Right, so pause if you still need to think. Sorry, I didn't number it. But it is going to be the Cerebral Aqueduct. And it's also carrying that cerebrospinal fluid. Right, so I had to cut away at some things to be able to see it clearly enough. So let's just, we'll go a little deeper. So you can also come through this view, cut away the cerebellum, and you can see it here too. So remember, on the top corner, you can see what I'm clicking on. But if you go down, we have the fourth ventricle. There's a couple of different portions of it showing right here, and then just above it, we have the cerebral aqueduct. So hopefully you can kind of make that connection. So lateral ventricle is going to lead into the third ventricle, going down through the cerebral aqueduct and down into the fourth ventricle. All right, so I think we hit everything that you need to know. Again, please use other resources to study as well. Don't just rely on this video. You need to be able to go into visible body and start looking at it yourself and kind of cutting away at some of those structures and finding them yourself. And of course, looking at some of the other resources for the functions as well. Right, so hopefully this helped you study a bit. And If you have any questions, of course, always come to Open Lab or office hours. And hopefully this will start making sense, or already does. So hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.